So Ipswich needing only a point at home to an already relegated Huddersfield meant there was next to nothing at stake, really, Ellen Rose, certainly for us anyway. Saints were already confirmed as finishing fourth, but we needed a good performance. Steve, you were there. Was it worth every penny of that £47?
Oh, God. I mean, no, but no. What we got was a very good performance. I think from more or less from start to finish. There were little flashes in the first half where Leeds got at us, but at the end of the day, they're a decent side in this division, and they're always going to have their moments. But I thought we looked excellent on the counter attack in the first half. Second half didn't really make the most of the opportunities that we had on the break for whole kind of various reasons. But having got the goals in the first half, we defended pretty well second half, I thought. I mean, Leeds fell into this really weird trap of basically trying to walk the ball into the net for the majority of that second half, and you could tell the growing frustration in the ground to the extent where I think the ball went back to a centre back on the centre circle, and the crowd were actually demanding him to shoot. With about 5 minutes to go, it got a bit silly. But no, we put bodies in the way of stuff when we needed to. But for the most part, I think we kind of kept them at arm's length for that second half. And yeah, job well done. Difficult to kind of know how much you read into it in terms of if we were to meet him again at Wembley in 3 weeks' time. But I think the end of the day, get out of there with the result and the performance. I think the performance was probably always going to be more important than the result in this one, just to show that we had a semblance of a system that was functioning again after the last couple of weeks where we've not quite been at the races. And yeah, I mean, obviously switched the system up to three centre backs. Walker Peters and Manning playing a lot higher as wing backs, but also offering protection against Leeds' wide threat when they were on the attack, which I think was important, and I think that was a good spot from Russell Martin, who obviously knows the way that Daniel Farke likes to play from their time together at Norwich. But yeah, I mean the system worked, and I mean, let's be honest, Flynn Downs back in the team, all of a sudden you see him on the team sheet, everyone just breathes a huge sigh of relief and thinks, okay, right, midfield should look a little bit controlled. And yeah, we had, for the vast majority of that game, we had the run in the midfield. Leeds central midfielders didn't really do an awful lot. They didn't impose themselves on the game. And Downs, Smallbone and Aribo were able to kind of play their way around them and through them quite comfortably, I thought. All in all, yeah, very satisfying. So yeah, on to bigger and more important things on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Glenn, it seemed to me that extra week of training helped. That was something that we'd highlighted last week, wasn't it? Because we were playing Saturday, Tuesday, and then all of a sudden he had a week to spend with the team and a week to potentially look at something different too.
It's interesting. We talked about possibly, playing a proper back three a few weeks ago, but if you've only got 3 days between games, there's not enough time to get that all sorted. Even though it's a formation that probably at various times in their careers most of the players will have played, but having a week, having a full week, not only was there the boost in energy, but there was obviously a plan that could be hatched. I think Russell Martin, like Steve said, I think he looked at Leeds and he looked at Farke and the way he likes to set up and just thought this will work against them. The midfield was remarkable. You saw it with Flynn Downs in the first sort of 5 minutes. I think he got the ball and ran forward about 50 yards with it, with no one getting anywhere near him. Walker Peters did it from the other side, from the right hand side as well. And it just seemed to be that Leeds have got the 4 players up front basically, and once you got past them, they reminded me a little bit of Manchester United's forwards. They're not interested in tracking back at all. So the 2 lads in midfield who aren't the best were just swamped, and we've seen it ourselves this season. If you don't protect the back 4, then it doesn't matter who's in the back 4; they're going to struggle. You know, we've had this a few times ourselves, which comes back to something else Steve said last week about Leeds having a lot of the same problems that we have. And I think we did really well to exploit them, and the new formation I thought suited absolutely everybody on the pitch. It just got the best out of the fullbacks. I think it enabled Aribo and Smallbone to both play 90 minutes, because they don't usually. Usually they're knackered, and the two of them got through 90 minutes. When the substitutions were made, we had like Joe Rothwell coming on, so I was a little bit concerned that the midfield might go, but because of the setup and the way we were playing, he just slotted in, and we still kept that defensive screen in front of the in front of the three centre backs. And I agree with Steve about the performance being more important than the result. Even if Leeds had equalised in the last minute, when we'd made all the substitutions, I don't think it really would have mattered. We'd proved that what we set out to prove, and it was just great to have. We tried something different, and the fact it worked is an absolute bonus. You don't often get these games where the result is secondary. And yes, of course, we've lost a few games, so it was nice to win. But the performance, I thought, was excellent, and there wasn't a single player I thought it was kind of below an 8 out of 10. I just thought everybody was, all the subs that came on, the ones that played any sort of significant amount of time. I just thought everyone did their job, and it really couldn't have gone better. So, I don't think it has a great deal of significance regarding the a potential meeting with them again at Wembley, but it will certainly show us that like the 2 wins against West Brom, that there's certainly nothing to, we shouldn't go in with an inferiority complex, put it that way.
Yeah, nothing to fear. What a difference a week makes. George, you were there as well yesterday. We talked last week about the importance of heading into the playoffs with some sort of momentum and maybe a little bit of form, and they delivered all that we asked yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I think Russell Martin sort of played down the importance of pre-playoff momentum. He says that the teams who finish 3rd and 4th are the ones who usually go up, and that is true, but you don't usually get a team that finishes 4th and they've lost loads of their games just before the season ends. I think if you look at the last 10 years, it's only Huddersfield who've lost 3 of the last 4 and still won the playoffs. But for Southampton to end with a win against a Leeds side who could have gone up, we can't forget that they could have been celebrating at the end of that game, winning promotion. They didn't turn up, and I do think the fact Ipswich were winning, Ipswich were going to go up, perhaps that sort of played into why Leeds, like Steve said, they were just trying to pass it into the back of the net. They seemed to lose a lot of their confidence as the game progressed. But going into the games against West Brom now, that's practically the perfect result. Russell Martin made tweaks before that West Brom game, and they worked. He's done it again now against Leeds. And although he says that some of the stuff they did yesterday may not do again against West Brom, I kind of think they will do the same thing against West Brom, because if you think back to that, you had Jack Stevens as the left back inverting, almost creating a back 3, and you had Ryan Manning coming a bit deeper, being like that wing back role, as the same way he was in the second half. So there's a lot of things you can take from the way they won that game and be confident going into the semi-finals against West Brom.
I don't want to get too far ahead, Steve, but we were hoping to see our best 11. And do you think, there was a couple of raised eyebrows for sure when the team sheet came out, but do you think that is the team that will deliver in the next couple of weeks?
Possibly, barring maybe one change. Possibly, I don't know. I think I do wonder whether the back 3 with the wing backs, whether that was a specific one-off situation, as we saw with as George mentioned, the West Brom away game, where we changed it up with Jack Stevens as kind of a floating left back holding midfielder type thing. But I think, as you say, like, few eyebrows raised when the team sheet came out, because especially the way that the Saints media team drew the lineup, because it had Harwood Bellis as a midfielder, and you're looking at that and thinking, okay, what the hell's going on here? But I think ultimately what's probably just happened is they had a template set up, and the one player that they weren't sure of ended up just being in that midfield role. But I think from a system perspective, it obviously worked yesterday. Whether playing wing backs against West Brom will have the same effect, I'm not sure. But I guess, as George said, there's kind of argument that maybe it was a little bit like that up at the Hawthorns anyway. Ryan Fraser played left wing and was excellent that night. And was it? I can't remember who played on the right that night. Was it Edozie maybe?
No, it was Kyle, but remember we did that thing with Shea Charles where he was kind of tucked in and he went in behind Walker Peters when Walker Peters went forward.
Yes.
So it was a strange sort of tactical setup we had that day, but it worked.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would let's be honest. Having seen the resultant performance at Leeds, then I don't think anybody would necessarily complain if the same 11 lines up in the same system at the Hawthorns on Sunday afternoon. I think they've shown that it works against good opposition. I mean, it's the way the fixtures have fallen has kind of almost worked perfectly. Now that once we got to the position where automatic was out of the equation, having that last game against comparative opposition meant that we could try the formation against a team that was looking to attack us. And you would imagine West Brom will be reasonably attack-minded in the home leg on Sunday. So yeah, I think that's probably been useful as a good sort of dress rehearsal for it.
I wonder if the social media graphic was part of the mind games. I don't know. I think it might have been Alfie or yourself, George, that noticed yesterday that I think Carl Walker-Peters wasn't warming up with the rest of the defenders. He was warming up with the forwards. Is that right? Did you spot that as well?
Yeah, Alfie was the one who picked that up first. But yeah, he was doing that, which I thought was quite interesting because we have seen him obviously play more as a right winger. If you think back to the game at Norwich, they had Jack Stevens at right back and Carl was the right winger. So I suppose, like Russell said as well after the game, they don't like to get too fixated on systems, and perhaps in the game, if that's something they needed to shift to, they'd have had the ability to do that. From speaking to Kyle after the game, it seemed like the system they played is what they've been training with all week, and they seem quite happy that they've now got something else up their sleeve that they can use in the playoffs.
Couple of goals to talk through as well, Glenn, because I think they deserve to be talked about because they were pretty decent. Great first goal as well. Some good work from. I mean, Flynn Downs keeps that ball alive, doesn't he? And then obviously Che as well. So that was good to see and at a good time.
Well, Che obviously decided he was going to be the Che Adams that is strong and can hold defenders off, which he doesn't always decide to do. But he kind of battered Glen Kamara out the way, and that was the pullback thing is obviously something that they work on because that's where the space is. And it was
four unmarked at the far post was quite
something. There's a lovely photograph that all the Leeds fan sites were posting, which is as Adams crosses the ball, they've got 6 defenders and the goalkeeper all looking at the ball, and we've got four players at the back post. I think Aribo's there, Walker Peters is there, and
so that's the Leeds equivalent of David Brooks against Cardiff, then.
Yeah,
that screenshot.
Pretty much, but and I mean, Adam Armstrong didn't really connect with it fully, but he got enough on it that chocolate wrists couldn't keep it out. I think he's a dreadful goalkeeper, and he's won the Golden Glove, hasn't he, for the season, which is remarkable given what we saw from Leeds' defence yesterday. Because I thought Ampadu and Rodon was shocking as well. They just let runners go the whole time. Awful players they seem to be, but yeah, they've obviously done well over the season. So yeah, that was a good goal to get to start things off, because I think that kind of really did put a dampener on any fireworks that there might have been. Yeah. And it was quite nice to see. And I was watching on TV, but it was nice when they went over to Ipswich and showed that it was still 0-0 at Ipswich at that time, and they showed the sort of like everyone beginning to go mad in the crowd.
News getting through.
We've caused that. That's good. And obviously they didn't need us. They didn't need us in the end, but it was a nice moment to see a goal we scored being celebrated somewhere else.
Good to help them out. Steve, the equaliser was a bit poor, wasn't it? I mean, Stephen's giving the ball away, terrible clearance from Harbour Bellis as well. But does the blame lie with any of them, or was it just like midfield lack of options for passing the ball out?
I mean, both of those certainly take an assist on that, I think. I mean, Stevens had the time and the space to pick a pass and chose to delay, and that allowed them to come in and close him down. And then, I mean, as you say, Harbour Howard Bellis, 9 times out of 10, he connects with that clearance and it goes up to the halfway line and nobody bats an eyelid. But yeah, this time he's managed to shank it straight to Pirou's feet. I mean, they've still got a little bit lucky. He's hit it really well, but it's took a deflection. And I think McCarthy probably gets a good hand on it if that deflection doesn't happen. So a little bit unfortunate, but architects of our own downfall there, unfortunately.
Yeah, as we've seen before. George, just talk us through the winner. I mean, fair play to Kyle Walker-Peters for not giving up on that second goal, but the pass from Jan Bednarik was pretty decent as well to spot it.
Yeah, it was an unreal. Yeah, it was an unreal pass. I think Junior Firpo thought it had gone out because he just seemed like he was completely asleep at left back. But it was basically something at their fluid best, wasn't it? The way they can just ping the ball long. Kyle's absolutely skinned him, and then he's put it into Will Smallbone, who's quite good at those last man runs, those late runs into the box. He seems to score a lot of his goals from there. I think we asked him about it earlier in the season, and Alfie joked that I was saying to Will that he only scores tap-ins, but a lot of the goals he scores are because he makes those runs late on. And I think when you do play him in the positions where he can do that, rather than when he has to sit so deep and try and help play out from the back, you get the best out of him. And I think that's a goal that really shows why the system worked the way it did, because you can just get players getting forward as opposed to getting to the byline and you've got maybe one option in the box. You don't find them, or you do find them and they miss the chance, and you kind of just waste a really good opportunity that way.
That was great to watch, definitely. And Glenn, obviously, Ross Stewart coming on too. It wasn't a mirage. He was there. We were told that he was going to get some minutes on the pitch. I thought it might have been a little bit more, but he was on for 10 minutes. He's still got that opportunity to fire us to promotion.
When Che Adams got injured, it was about the hour mark, wasn't it? I know it's not. It's thought it's not too serious an injury. Ross Stewart was warming up. And obviously, someone thought it's a little bit too long for his first game, because it could potentially have been in 40 minutes, you know, at that stage. So they put Camaldine on up the middle, which I thought was a worthwhile experiment as well. We called him for that a few weeks ago, mainly because he doesn't do anything when he plays on the wing. But and I actually thought he did okay as well. But it was good to see Ross Stewart come on. I mean, I'm still kind of excited to find out what sort of player he is. I've never really watched, because he got injured and he was obviously going to be out for ages. I don't think I've ever even watched the highlights reel of his goals to see what sort of player he is. And it's
he looked quick to me. He looked quick.
He's obviously he's obviously fairly quick. He's got a decent touch. You could see that from yesterday. And the one header he went for, despite being 6'4" or whatever he is, he didn't get anywhere near. So, taking that in isolation, it looks like he wants the ball to feet. He wants the ball in behind. His work in the air, he needs work. But no, it's it's great to have him on the bench. Obviously, the potential's there. With him, he's scored goals wherever he's been before. Obviously, he started off well in the Championship with Sunderland before he got his first injury. So yeah, it could be a proper fairy tale. But whatever happens, I'd rather have him on the bench than the alternative centre forward we've got, and we all know who I'm talking about. So it's it can only be a good thing. It's just hope he doesn't have any reaction to the 10 minutes, and he won't be expected to start games before the end of the season, obviously.
No,
but it's a nice to have should we should we need it, and he'll obviously be very hungry to do well, and everyone will be willing him to do well. So I'm looking forward to finding out exactly what sort of player we've got.
I'm going to ask you all for Player of the Week in just a moment. I mean, we had to cancel it last week because there wasn't anybody that was worthy of a nomination. This week, I think we've got the absolute opposite. Steve, just final words on Leeds. I mean, it's a big if we do end up playing them again. I've come away from this weekend thinking, actually, we've got nothing to fear. Watching, Daniel Farke yesterday, I think he's unlikely to spring any surprises on us, and that's left me feeling a lot more confident than I did on Friday afternoon.
I mean, Leeds don't have a good playoff record. I think they've been in 5 playoffs and never got promoted.
100%.
And although admittedly we're also 0 from 1, so it's I mean, you look at sort of historical records in terms of how a club kind of gets through these difficult games, and neither of us are particularly strong on that. But Yeah, I agree. I don't think Leeds are going to ever spring a surprise on anybody. I think they are what they are. They've got their way of playing, and the attacking talent they've got available is usually good enough against most opposition. But yesterday they came up against a team on a reasonably comparative level, and our system, I think Russell Martin kind of outthought them really, and yeah, the way the midfield was able to play around them, that was the key battle, and we basically stopped. Certainly in the second half, we stopped the ball getting to their key wide players, and you keep those two quiet, and that's kind of half the battle done really. And you know that if you can get at them going the other way, they are prone to leaving the back door open. It's as Glenn said, it's quite mad that Meslier's got the Golden Glove. But basically, a lot of the reason for that is that at Elland Road, from the start of the season, teams have been going there basically just looking to defend deep, and not really try and hurt them. Whereas more recently, look at the likes of Blackburn, who went and won their 1-0, and deservedly so. And they went and thought, well, no, we've got arguably the best finisher in the division. Let's use that attacking talent and let's go at them, because we know that defensively, if you put them under pressure, they're getting no protection from the midfield in front. So yeah, it's an opportunity for be very interested to see how Norwich approach it on Sunday, because I wonder whether Norwich's team, their squad setup kind of cries out a little bit to play that wing back system, I think, because they're quite heavy in terms of they need to pack the midfield, I think, Norwich, in their games with the sort of talented players that they've got. So I kind of fancy they'll replicate what we've done, and that may be their best opportunity to get through themselves.
Their best chance. Let's do our player of the week then. If you're watching along live, then by all means jump on and let us know who stood out for you, especially if you were there yesterday. George, I'm going to give you the honour of going first. It could be anybody really, couldn't it? We've got like 4 or 5 to pick from. Who's the first name on the social media poll tonight?
I think Flynn Downs, just the way he comes into the team, and just they look so much better just with him in the team. We don't get to watch every single team play in the Championship this season, but I struggle to imagine there's any team who need him as much as Saints do, if you know what I mean. Like, just the way when he comes in, they're just a totally different side, aren't they? For the reasons everybody spoke about all season. And if he wasn't there, I don't think what they did would have worked as well, because he can take the ball deep, but he can also, as Glenn said earlier, he can drive with it, and he is actually probably a really underrated attacking threat. So I think for just how good he was, and the fact that he was also able to come off and not get injured, that's an extra bonus.
That is a bonus. Yeah, I think we were all quite pleased when he managed to get through and get off. Glenn, who else are we adding to the list? Obviously, Flynn Downs a given.
I thought, bearing in mind that Leeds have got all their attacking threat, Crescencio, however you pronounce his name, Crescencio Somerville he's player of the season in the Championship, and we made him look a bit like a one-trick pony. He just wanted to get onto his right foot the whole time. And Walker Peters and Harwood Bellis defended that superbly, and the concentration required to sort of like keep him in check was good. So I'd go Carl Walker Peters, but if I can, and I'll obviously set up the second goal as well. That was superb. But I'd like to say something about the forwards as well, because the forwards, with the two of them playing centrally, it would have been very easy just to sort of be static and be marked by the two centre halves. But I thought Adams had a marvellous game, because he just kept coming short, and Rodon didn't want to go with him. So he was holding the ball up really well and knocking it on. Adam Armstrong was sort of like playing in the gap between Firpo, who's useless, and Ampadu, and they couldn't handle him either. So I thought the two forwards were excellent. So take your pick from those. But if I had to go for anyone, it'd be Kyle.
Steve?
Yeah, I'd have added Shea Adams. Simply because, it was, as Glenn mentioned earlier, it was one of those games where Shea's well and truly in the game, and he's properly up for it. And the way he was holding off both of their centre backs under fair amount of sort of physical abuse at times.
Mhm.
And yeah, the way he's able to play these little sort of round the corner passes and bring others into play and just
Yeah.
release attacks all the time, I thought was excellent. And yeah, obviously we kind of hope that the sort of early indications on his knock are accurate, and it's only right. Let's not kind of take any risks here. Let's give you a rest for 25 minutes, half an hour, rather than anything more serious. But yeah, we'll find out.
Good to have some options as well. We'll get that polled online in just a moment.